That's right. I'm back in the chair ad hot seat, and Agro's here with Mac. And Agro, remember where this journey all started? All right, we're spoiling the bit here, dog. We're spoiling it. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. You remember where we all started here, right? I mean, months ago, I joked on cast about getting a dog, and then the second thing I did was bait here with the Maxonomic pillow.
Which was very good.
Which was very
also
good,
very rude. Yeah.
But now no more baiting to be done. We've got a little squishy friend here who's going to help me talk about Maxonomic. Oh, wait, it's upside down. It's her favorite little pillow. And we love our chair sponsor here, Maxonomic. Look at the little head poking over it. And look, if you're saying no to a chair, you're saying no to this. You're saying no to this if you don't buy
Give me 5.
These Maxonomic.
I'll buy 10.
You don't get a puppy, but you do get a chair award. You're so sweet. Thank you very much, Maxonomic. Oh, now she's giving kisses. Oh, thank you so much, Maxonomic,
so
our chair sponsor here for the SPL and the fan favorite of all of the little puppies. This is Ramsey. You'll probably see or hear her running around in the background here at some point. We'll see if we can do a whole desk. Oh, I know.
This is going to be the best desk segment of all time, by the way. I've tried to get Mackenzie up more in camera, but she is so comfortable just like lounging that I can't do it.
She immediately wanted to get down and run and play. So the couple of minutes that I had her there were about all we'll get, but we'll see more of them anyway. So we finally come full circle. The pups have joined on the camera, and she'll have to meet Mac here very soon. Unfortunately, we can't talk about puppies all desk long because we've got a third set to go through today here in the SPL, and it is Spacestation Gaming versus nearly said Radiance. Renegades. That would be back-to-back games for PK and Radiance if that were the case. But SSG versus the Renegades, two teams on opposite ends of the standings here, Agro, and SSG look very hard to beat, to say the least here at the moment. Renegades a small push forward recently, but haven't quite found their footing with this new roster just yet.
No, not quite yet. And they've had some really good moments. They've had those flashes of brilliance that we've kind of come to expect from all three bottom-end teams between the Renegades, E-United, and Obey. All three of them have shown moments where they look like they can compete with the top end. It's usually been, except for Ghost and SSG, but that dynamic has changed. It changed a little bit last week. We'll see if Renegades can continue that and try and upset SSG here. And one guy you're going to have to go through if you're going to upset SSG will be Raffer. Raffer, a large part of this duo lane here that has been, I think, working somewhat well for this SSG squad recently here. The picks, I think most of the current meta picks, I think, work with what Raffer wants to play. Kuzumbo, definitely, I like that we see that. Actually, first highlight overall, I think that really fits into his wheelhouse. It's a tall task to go toe-to-toe, not only with Raffer, but Raffer and Vote. The SSG duo lane is definitely one that's difficult to go up against. It is. They're the complete package. They really play every phase of the game really well. The one weakness they've had historically this year has been a little bit more early game focused, but I think they've fixed that. They've won some games by snowballing early, which is something that they didn't really show that they had in the repertoire before. Now they've shown that capability, and their mid to late game is still nearly unmatched in the entire SPL. So I think that if Renegades are going to have a shot today, you've got to go for the big early game snowball, pick something aggressive for Jake over there, that long lane, and maybe try and set guys like Raffer behind.
Yeah, you look at Jake and Barracuda. And Agro, admittedly, even in very tough sets for this Renegade squad, Jake he's an enigma in his own right. I think he's very hard to lock down. And in their previous set, they get 2-0'd by Ghost. They 2-0 Obey just before that. Remember, that was a very fast set against Obey just prior to the loss against Ghost. Jake, he can perform like one of the better supports here in this league. I think it's hard to kind of put my finger on exactly where he's going to be playing, but him and Barracuda have definitely built up some synergy of their own, and I have high expectations for them nowadays.
It's really, for me, it boils down when I'm watching Renegades, in Jake in particular. It's a matter of if he has flipped the switch or, alternatively, turned on the Jets. That's a huge part of this Renegades duo lane, because if they get him on a comfort pick, something like the Fafnir, like the Sobek, Jake is one of the most mechanically talented supports in the entire league. And if he's feeling it, if he's turned on the Jets, he's hitting everything, then I think the Renegades usually have great potential to snowball those games. Really, the one part of the map that I'm really never that worried about for Renegades is this duo lane. I think when they struggle, it's usually in jungle or on solo or on the right side of the map. Sometimes Venenu can struggle a little bit as well, but I think he's been playing a lot better as of late. I think that when Renegades are able to put together the whole package, it's usually Jake running the forefront.
And Agra, this is something we'll be able to dive into a little bit, after. We'll get to hear from Jake in a moment. What do you think of this Fafnir pick? I mean, it seems like Jake is one of the maybe only supports here in the SPL. There are a couple other guys, I think, as well. But he really likes this Fafnir. Do you think that's an advantage to have, a disadvantage? What do you think of Fafnir maybe as a whole in the current meta?
I think Jake's God Pool is both an advantage and a disadvantage. I think that he has his moments where he ends up being really, really hard to pick and ban against because he's willing to play a whole lot of different things. But when you don't have the capability of picking Yamoja early, that'll hold you back. I think that's the one part of Jake's game that's really missing. But the Fafnir pick has been great for him. I think that I'm fine with Renegades prioritizing it.
Agreed. You mentioned turning on the Jets. It's important for this Renegades squad to give them a chance over SSG. Jake agrees as well. I sat down with Jake for a quick interview. Take a listen. All right, everyone, we are here with AwesomeJake, the 408 support for the Renegades. First things first, Jake, you bring in variety, kind of mixed results, I would say, from that point on. You had some good games. You had some offsets as a team. Is there anything the team as a whole has kind of honed in on that you guys want to improve on? And, we're kind of getting to the final weeks of the SPL here. Where's the focus for you guys?
We're focusing on our 3v3 and playing around the solo side of the map, and we're trying to get pretty good at that because I feel like that's the way the meta is going.
Right.
And in dual lane, we're looking to diff on the enemy dual lane in this coming set because we've been losing quite a few games, and it's time to turn on the Jets, if you will.
Sure. And I will, and it's a tall task. Rapper and Vote, of course, the duo lane for SSG. What's it going to take, do you think, to find the diff? I mean, obviously it's tough to play against Rapper. Vote's been a good series here as well. Does anything come to mind?
You just got to turn on the Jets. Hopefully we'll be playing Ymir Fafnir, so you just run at them and hit your abilities. And hopefully me and Barrett can find the duo cohesion that we need to overcome the obstacle that is, Vote and Raffer.
Well, look, we've seen that cohesion. Yeah, there are sets where you guys are just firing on all cylinders, turning on the Jets, if you will. Final thoughts, you bring up the Ymir, you bring up the Fafnir. Do you love those picks just because you can kind of walk in, hit some CC, and set up for the rest of your team?
Yeah, those are two of my favorite gods. Hopefully my team will let me play them. I've got some other stuff in the banks, so right. If it comes to that, I can just whip it out. Yeah.
Fair enough. Jake, this is going to be a fun set to watch. Hoping for a 3v3 and a duo lane diff here from you guys to get you the win. Thanks for your time, and best of luck.
Thank you.
What a guy. Always fun to talk to AwesomeJake and the way he sets up this matchup. Look, memes aside, turning on the Jets aside, I don't think he's far off. I think that kind of boils down to they just click every once in a while, and when they're clicking, this is a hard team to deal with, but they haven't clicked maybe often enough for how they like here. Do you see all that much overlap in the God pools between Jake and Raffer? We've had a lot of conversation around those two. Do you think either of those picks are really going to be contested for either of the two supports?
I think it's really just Sobek and Kuzenbo that are shared picks there. Otherwise, we're seeing a little bit more things like Fafnir from Jake. We're seeing things like Ganesh from Raffer. I don't think we're going to see Ganesh from Jake at all. And I don't expect to see Fafnir for Raffer. So those two are kind of separate. The big one, as it always will be, is Yamoja. Jake has not shown his ability to play that character at a high level quite yet. And I think that's a big deal. Renegades have to man it every single game. And starting the game with one less ban than your opposition is not an easy way to win.
Definitely not great. And our question always around this SSG team is when are teams in the league going to start banning out the Amaterasu if they're not willing to pick it away on their side? And The answer is now. Renegades, Amaterasu off the table makes some sense, but look at that. The Fafnir taken away. Jake said, hopefully my team will let me play the Fafnir, but SSG are not even going to let him have the option for one of those two picks. Ymir still on the table, of course. Erlang Shen, I think smart ban against Cherio. The guy got, what, a penta and a couple of quads or something like that on the Erlang Shen out of the jungle. Sobek as well. So aggro, there is a little bit of focus on Jake and targeting out his god pool from SSG with their 2 out of their 3 bans.
And no Umoja ban here from Renegade, so I'd expect SSG to go for it, though I would like them holding it as well. Make Jake show you he can play it. And this is a big game for Renegades if they decide to go for it. Dardes gets the coveted Aphrodite. It is not often that he gets this given over to him. I wonder, with Neil Ma playing a little bit more Odin, with some players playing a little bit more Serket, some of these anti-heal options kind of coming back into the meta in small ways, maybe Renegades is going to rely on some of those in order to make sure that this Afro doesn't take over the game.
I like this, the Cupid for Barracuda. Definitely a contested pick. SSG, love that Cupid out of the duo lane. Seen it sometimes flexed over to the mid, though it's been a little longer since we've seen that. Oh, there she goes into the background again, running around somewhere. Hercules as the second pick here for the Renegades, so that's smart. I mean, that's a strong pick, I suppose, for Raffer. We've seen some flexibility out of Hercules in that maybe solo lane once or twice here recently, but obviously more usually out of that support role. If it is a Cupid Herc in that duo lane together, is that a combo you get excited about?
Absolutely. It's great kill potential. It helps Cupid clear the wave. Sometimes Heart Bomb only hits half the wave. If you Earthbreaker the archers in, it'll clear the wave pretty much instantly. I think that it is a pretty good combo, and it would make sense to me to have Renegades take a god for Jake top 3 here with already 2 bans devoted his way with the Fafnir and the Sobek. But if I remember correctly from watching you and Finch's recap, I think I saw Variety on the Hercules even last week.
Right.
So maybe that is something that we could see Renegades trying to hide Jake's pick until a little bit later on.
Well, look at this. The Held makes her way through. She's oh, that's right. We're getting back to picks and bans. Looking which way. Oh, she does not. She wants. No, she got toys all over the place. She needs to romp around and play.
Get her
totally
out.
Understood. Yeah, she's
a free spirit,
so
Dave.
Right. They gotta let her roam for the time being.
Let her go.
Held locked in for the Renegades here. A pick often banned out, I suppose, against Dardas and Paul, I guess, for PK. Not something we've really seen picked up by the Renegades often, if at all. Umoja, of course, worth mentioning. She is picked here for SSG. But what do you think about the Hell pick? Is that something you think works for the Renegades?
It's an interesting idea. I mean, you're giving so much sustain over to SSG in the form of the Afro and the Umoja. You have to try and match it at some level. And instead of going something like Guan Yu, which a lot of other teams have gone for sustain as of late, Renegades opts for the Hell, which is just there to try and match that same sustain. But Hell is a character that gets locked in by those Umoja walls. It's a character that's susceptible to getting one-tapped off of damage from, say, a linked jungler with an Aphrodite back off extra damage. It's a lot of pressure here on Ven in order to match the output of Dardes on Afro. And just so everyone understands what I'm saying, Ven needs to match Dardes on Afro. Arguably the best player in the SPL, Dardes, on arguably his hardest pick to counter, Afro. So we're all on the same page.
That's what I'm thinking here, man. And now Kali for Cherio. Okay, we found the squeakiest toy in the basement, so be prepared for the next few seconds to be listening to that. Kali for Cherio. Look, you're looking at the first 4 picks here for SSG, and they got to be wondering how they got away with this. Vamana, maybe a little bit different. So Nika not on the Amaterasu, the memes surrounding that. We get a chance to talk about the Vamana and how that solo lane might look here for Nika as I get this toy away from this dog.
You can barely hear it, Dave. It's fine.
Okay,
if Ramsey's happy, we're happy, and that's literally all that matters. I got to say, I am not happy with this Vamana pick here for Nika. I really dislike whenever you pick gods like Afro and Umoja and Kali, gods that already do poorly against anti-heal, and then you go, here, have a Vamana, a pick that gets obliterated by Cursed Ankh, by the way.
Yeah.
They're going to buy a Cursed Ankh already. You want to pick Vamana in composition where that is the only sustain, and you go, I guess we get an Ankh here for the Vamana, but it doesn't feel great. It's a one relic for one god kind of thing. I really dislike this Vamana pick here for SSG. Now, maybe the idea is they can't all have cursed onk. We can, if someone else gets onked and then Vamana can ult, it's not as bad, but that's not really how that works. If any duration in that curse onk duration happens, you're going to get anti-healed. I loved this comp up until the Vamana pick, and I still think the other 4 picks are strong enough to get SSG this win, but I'm surprised at the direction that Nico went. I think he's going to have a difficult time staying relevant in this game.
I mean, if you're telling me that Dardas gets Afro, Vote gets Jingwei, Rapper gets Yamoja, Cherio gets Kali, I agree. I mean, that's nuts to me. I think Renegades have themselves some comfort on their side as well. A little bit of a flex pick in the interesting department maybe out of Venenu. Final thoughts there, Aggro?
Yeah, there's only one way Renegades can win this one, Dave, and that's by turning on the jets. We got to activate those jets. Stat.
Hey, look, the plane's all fueled up. Let's see if the jet is fired up. SSG versus Renegades. Let's kick off game 1.
Thanks, fellas. Let's see if Renegades can hit the gas perhaps here and find a win over SSG. Thank you guys again. I'm joined here on the cast by Goremizer. Still got Doug providing us the views, and we still need you to make sure you're voting for us in chat. Hit the polls so you can see who you think will win. But Gore, I mean, obviously SSG are favored here, but I think we're doing Renegades a disservice if we don't acknowledge how much better they've been playing lately as this Jingwei gets hit by the driving strike. Beads are expended, but not out of the woods just yet. The rest of the Renegades are still hunting Vote here, Gore. They've got the flank, and I think this might be trouble for the Jingwei. Lazarus finds first blood before the minions even spawn.
So that one, you chalk it up all to Skinnergy, right? This retro Hercules skin has to be the main reason Jake is able to get there. I mean, he uses his blink for it. And in fact, he's still willing to be aggressive. They want this purple buff. It's not enough to just get the first blood. They're going to hover around here. And honestly, if Vote takes the pathing that he looks like he's going to, if he gets into this fight, you're going to get pushed against the wall again. Jake is absolutely going to take advantage of the positioning here and at least stop them from getting some farm.
We talk all the time about how much pressure Hercules has, but same is true for Yamoja. If SSG can find a way to stabilize here, they can certainly compete in this lane as Jake now a bit sandwiched. Take a lot of extra damage here from Vote and Raffer, but continuing to push forward. This is how you play Herc, with reckless abandon, and it's working for Jake here so far. Now, first blood before minions spawn. You see SSG are favored, but not by as much as I might have thought. Getting a kill before minions spawn here, Gore, it's not backbreaking. I think Renegades, or rather SSG, shouldn't feel too bad about giving up that.
If they lose the purple buff and anything else starts to go their way, then yeah, you do start to maybe stress out about it. But right now, I mean, you're getting the gank early from Cherry. This is going to help.
And there's the leap in. Barracuda's already used the dash. Nowhere for him to go. And that kill,
Stun?
I think perhaps even more impactful than the one Vote had to give up. Obviously, first blood bounty is huge. But now, that time where he's gone can be used to potentially grab farm or just secure farm. As Jake 1v3 is still considering stepping in. Dash to avoid getting stunned out there by Yamoja. So Jake still holds on to life. But Cheerio guarantees the purple buff goes to SSG, and Raffer has not soaked up any of that farm, Gore. He's making sure it's just getting split between his carries.
I mean, this is the great way to do it, right? Raffer, he doesn't need it. You're Yamoja, you're level 1. You're going to have the bubble and the stun. He literally just showcased the entirety of Yamoja's pressure right there. That's all you need when you've got her on your side. And you've got a kill onto Cherry, now a kill onto Vote. It's keeping up with Lasber, who got that first blood, and it's setting Barracuda behind. This is a great way for SSG to turn around what felt like maybe a detrimental loss at the beginning. Like you said, losing first blood before minions doesn't hurt that badly, and this is the best way to showcase that.
Yeah, it just isn't a game where the kills themselves are that brutal to give up, right? It's all about when you're missing from the map and the other team gets control, where that punishment really comes through. And think about the sort of cascading effect. Lasbra really thrives off these early ganks onto duo, but I think Cherio's kind of taking that off the table here a bit by rotating over early, putting this duo lane of Renegades a bit behind by getting those 2 kills to start, one for him, one for Vote, and make it life a bit harder as Raffer gets pulled in, has the Riptide, but the Heart Bomb is still ticking. Renegades could certainly use a kill here. The dash in, and Jake putting all of what Cheerio just did to bed by coming in and finding another pick in the duo.
And that just showcased why your survivability is important. Raffer uses that stun, trying to lock down Jake, but Jake is just outside the range, so he's still able to get the push off without letting Raffer run away. And I think that Glasbra might have some trouble until he's level 5 keeping up with him. Both Raffer and Vote have some good disengages, but Jake's not going to, especially now that his blink is up. He's going to be able to continue getting aggressive. The downside to the composition, Finch, I think Hell scales well into the late game, and Venenu, there may be some question marks around whether or not he's going to kind of stand up to, I guess, the only standard we really have, which is Paul's standard on this pick, right? And that's difficult to do at any given time. But the healing that is going to come down from SSG, I mean, Cherry is going to be able to find second lives if he finds his target. Dartez and Raffer are going to literally give people second lives with the amount of healing they can do. I think Renegades, the trouble that they're going to run into is that sustained later on. Right now, it's easy to get the kills because the health bars stay relatively permanently down if you get that poke. But in a few minutes, that's not going to be the same. You have to find them now.
It does really hurt here for Raffer, though, that he ended up falling on that tail end. That was a huge pick for Renegades to kind of bring things a little bit back in their favor after SSG, with that early rotation from the Kali, found a way to fight back. So now, exactly like this, Jake can start to do a little bit of rotating ahead with more impact, level 4, as opposed to Raffer, who's forced to leave lane because Jake is, but is still level 3. And now Renegade is starting to look around at the enemy jungle. Not a lot there, but they're looking, and Jake might be here for the speed, gets there maybe a little bit too early, but does put down a ward, I believe, so he'll know that speed is up right now. And Cheerio is still elsewhere on the map, but Renegade's not going to make a move to try and strip that one away, so no harm, no foul. Maybe I spoke a little bit too soon. Now Jake is making a little bit of an odyssey, a trek down here, but Raffer will cut him off. Not going to let Renegades come down and look for the speed. That's a hard buff to get. Is Variety now the one under siege? Gore, the knockup was there, but Variety just survives.
But now they're in a position, if they want to, they could maybe cut someone off. Jake maybe seems the most susceptible to getting locked down here. They're going to do so to make sure they get this Hercules, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Look, he's so tanky, he's turning it around.
He got a big heal off the mitigate wounds there and is able to push forward and get the kill on a Raffer in response, but Jake's still low. Nika is sticking to him, looking for the kill. He grabs it, but Cheerio was low as well. Lasbra is able to return the favor back onto him, but Vote is a part of the fight. Nika able to get a double kill, and the Hunter has joined the fray to even up these numbers. Nika blinking in, finding the slow, forcing Venenu to use the beads to get away. And Spacestation find a couple of kills in that fight of their own.
I don't know where to really chalk that up. I mean, we get to see this Vamana come through, and admittedly he last hit that last one, but otherwise was very potent for him. And now, again, Finch, they're just scrapping at this point. Fields of Love to disengage from Renegades. I think for a composition in my mind on Space Station that you're not supposed to be looking at them getting this aggressive until maybe later. I guess Yamoja enables some of it, but Kali, Aphrodite, even Jingwei to an extent, you're not supposed to be fighting yet. You're supposed to wait. You're just farming. Calm down. They are incredibly aggressive, and it's paying off for them. I think getting the kills over there onto someone like Nika, letting him get ahead on a pick that, as Aggro had highlighted on the desk, is more than likely going to struggle in the late game, is going to let him maybe help snowball a small lead over Variety. He can make some rotations, and before any of those anti-heal items come online, before a Cursed Ankh comes online, he can be impactful in these team fights, have a very big, I guess, just presence throughout all of them. And then when he starts to wane, it's still going to be him. He's been the problem the entire game at that point. So Dartez, maybe Cheerio, can get away with murder at that point because everyone's focused on Nika.
And take a look at the network charts to get an idea of how this all breaks down. About 300 ahead for Lasbra, about 300 ahead for Ben as well. And now Nika, trying to defend the blue, has to go into the Colossal Fury. Does end up surviving, no real worry there when he sells the ult, but not able to defend the buff. And now Raffer having to reposition 4 members of Renegades are on the right. The only person not here is Vera because he's in lane. As Tyrio leaps away, Jake takes some additional damage, and Renegades steal even more farm. Gore, this is Renegades kind of forcing SSG to play at their pace. And now SSG are rotating in, looking for the lockdown onto Lasbra, the member of the furthest forward. But Variety comes in to provide some heal. Lasbra low. Will use the ultimate in hopes to reposition, but ends up finding nothing. Cheerio locks him down, and SSG find the first kill.
I mean, just being able to find the only kill as of right now, and with the tower line where it is, I don't know that they're going to get too aggressive, although Venenu, a little bit of awkward pathing. Yes, you get movement speed from your heal. Yes, you got to cleanse. Still got to be careful as hell in these waters. You don't have enough mana this early on to be able to hold anything. No Doom Orb online either, so he doesn't really have anything to help give him that boost. And it is just that sustain. But Jake, I got to give props to him. He's been all over the world so far this game. He's been able to be over there in duo. He's over here in solo. Goes back to the speed buff occasionally just to make sure he knows that he can be there. I think he is just running wherever he wants, and honestly, once Hercules, with the amount of healing that he has, the amount of tankiness he already has as well, even though it's just innate tankiness and the warrior status here, then you add a Hell onto that, and Jake, I just think literally doesn't have a care in the world. He's an early game Hercules, and he knows that, so he's playing, as you had said earlier, with reckless abandon.
And he's been playing that style nearly perfectly so far, just relentless aggression coming out from Jake, but SSG have done a good job of responding to it so far. Just take a look at the goal charts. I mean, things are basically even, a little bit back and forth, just depending on how these waves end up breaking down, and Cheerio has the kin size finish now at this point too. I think SSG have done a really good job of finding ways that they can counter this early game aggression from Renegades, even though, as you said, SSG have a largely mid to late game type of draft. This time, though, Renegades do find the blue buff invade successfully. They bring 4 members in, Gore, to make sure they can fight if SSG are there. But SSG, wisely, I think, elect not to take that fight and just give the buff up.
And ultimately, I think SSG are in this position where they can make calls like that. The kills are 5-4, but they are also just slightly 100 gold ahead in kills, gold, I should say. But they're finding the kills more consistently. I think their lockdown is a little bit easier found as well. Good slows that are detrimental, almost to the point where I'm looking at Spacestation, or if I'm looking for Renegades, I kind of want a Heavenly Agility just to try and stop some of this. They've got a lot of control and lockdown for SSG. Alongside your beads, something to disengage would be really nice.
Something to be able to get away from, as you mentioned, all this control that's coming out would be big. The Totem of Coup goes to SSG. Cheerio has been chilling in solo for a minute, just putting some damage on the variety and eating up a little bit of that farm alongside Nika. But now the rotation's on. They're leaving solo alone, heading back towards mid. But it looks like Renegades are on the run as well as they head back over towards the red buff. This is an interesting one here, Gore, because both of these teams are moving into the late with a ton of healing as Vote and Barracuda end up trading out their ultimates, and Cheerio gets pulled in. Renegades set a trap hiding near that Oracle field, and they're able to pull Cheerio in easily. Now they're looking for the red buff invade. Here to defend are Raffer and Dardes, but red buff ends up going to Renegades. Jake and the boys are putting on too much pressure right now.
I almost want to say, it's one of the least used VGS commands. I think it's VVVA, the set up an ambush here. That is exactly what that looks like. When you're supposed to use it, you just sit around the corner and you wait for the jungler to make a rotation. Cheerio, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that one, right? You get taken down by a Hercules, knocked up, pushed into a wall. There's 2 other people waiting to just absolutely demolish your health bar. I think they're lucky that, honestly, it just ends like that. Unfortunately, it also ends up resulting in Jake, who has already been aggressive, already doing a lot of damage. It's 2-2-2 as well, getting a red buff and finishing off a contagion. He's got anti-heal, he's got power, he's got physical protections to help deal with Cheerio, Nika, and Vote. He's just going to get more aggressive from here, Finch. He does not care. And I think, again, what they had said, I guess, in the interview on the desk, the Jets seem to be going.
Wow, looks like a potential Fury being started. And, yeah, I'm a bit surprised if they had stuck that. Didn't really seem like one where they had the DPS there to make that work. So Renegades end up giving up on it, though they still do have quite a bit in their favor. They've got the Brawlers, as you mentioned, the Contagion, which they also have already. The anti-heal is starting to come through, and they're going to need it. But SSG have really hung in with them. I don't want to get too far away from the state of this game, Gore, which is that SSG are even in kills, even in gold. And whoa, the burst damage is there. Dardes felt the hurt. Jake trying to start this fight off. The ultimate locks everybody in. That's coming through from Raffer. So now they're locking down Jake. And inside that Destruction Ultimate, Cheerio not going to fall. Jake goes down first, and now Nika trying to keep up the chase inside this Ultimate. But he's been hit by the Lord of the Afterlife. That means no healing going to be coming through from the Vamana. But Vote has made his way into the back, taking care of Benenu, and Barracuda, who cannot rotate, is still in lane. Lasbra preemptive bees to avoid the knockup, but now he is stuck on the wrong side of the map, and that's 3-0 in favor of SSG. And just like that, this went from neutral to favoring the Space Station boys.
Yeah, Yamoja still exists in this game, and Yamoja Still one of the best supports, and honestly just maybe best god in the game, at least for competitive play, that you're going to see because of that lockdown. I mean, all of that starts with Raffer having great walls. I think maybe reminding Renegades, I went on a rant the other day about how I didn't like the fact they were banning her. That's because they were first pick, and they should be grabbing her first. You always want your second pick in any situations like this to be the ones that have to ban away something this strong. And unfortunately, when you're against Spacestation Gaming, one of the things we talked about throughout all of this, and the SBL waiting room, just in the last few weeks in general, has been, what do you do when you're in the ban phase against Space Station Gaming? I mean, you can't ban everything, even with 3 good bans that Renegades had coming into this. You let Yamoja Aphrodite through, right, on their side. Even this Kali, who hasn't won a ton of her games, is still going to be a good pickup, I think, for Cherio here. And it just feels so awkward. I mean, you're juggling so much when you're playing against a team like this, who, as Mifflin has pointed out, and as I think you argued on Friday, is, you know, the best otherwise to Ghost. And with the way things have been going, maybe at this point just the best. We'll have to continue seeing how they go, at least in their head-to-head. But it's so difficult to take them on, as Obey showed yesterday. Even if you make one small mistake with a massive lead, they'll tear you apart from that. They will absolutely demolish you. So you have to be careful here if you're Renegades. I love their composition. I think it scales well into the late game as well. I just think Space Stations might do it a little bit better.
Maybe so. It'll be close as the airstrike comes out from Vote. Barracuda's already used the Fields of Love as well, so they trade ult for ult over there with those hunters in the long lane. You talked about the picks and bans earlier, and it was what, the Ganesh band, the Erlong Shen band. I think it's worth, you know, some analysis, some critique on those bans, because whatever you do, if Aphrodite Yamoja end up in SSG's hands, I think it's hard to say you did things correctly. As Nika, recognizing Lazarus back on those Harpies, Nika has the Frostbounds, but with the backup coming, Nika won't be able to find the kill here. In fact, Nika has to use the ultimate with Jake coming in as well, and now some body blocks trying to slow him down as well. Nika realizing eventually he can just walk right on out of there, and he does escape, but Renegades do a good job to force out that solo lane ultimate. It looks like we've got a pause in the action coming through here this time, Gore. We'll bring it back out and try to get us back into the game here as soon as possible once the players get this resolved. But Gore, I think that SSG have kind of turned the corner here a little bit. They seem to be comfortably fighting into this early game from Renegades.
Yeah, and honestly, when you're able to hold your own this early with this kind of composition, again, a lot of them don't even come online, or you wouldn't consider online until 15-plus minutes into the game, then you're doing a good job already, right? I mean, Cherio's been able to be active in these kills. Kali is normally not someone that we're supposed to see for 20 minutes, you know, very akin to like Kronos, where you're just like, okay, yeah, you go do your thing for a little while. Maybe we'll see you eventually and your ults will be on point. But when you have something like this Aphrodite, I think it enables everything that SSG are doing, right? Vote, as well as Nika, as well as Cherio, can just play more recklessly because they've got a safety net. I mean, they don't even have to use their beads or ages if they pick them up, because that's exactly what we have Dardes for. He's supposed to be the one who saves us, either healing or ulting for us to make sure we get out of there alive. Even a good example there at the very end. Nika in ult, surrounded by everybody on the Renegades, just decides to walk on out of there because his healing plus Dardes healing means that no one's going to shred through him, at least not yet. Even with the little bit of anti-heal they have, it's not enough to hold him down.
Yeah, and even with this hell over there for Renegades, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep up with SSG in the late game, right? They've got this Yamoja, they've got this Aphrodite, and it's not just the healing, as you kind of already covered, right? It's the destruction from Kali that means she cannot die. It's the undying love that means for that small window you cannot die, right? Or the safety inherently in a pick like Vamana or in Jingwei that makes me think it's going to be really hard in the late game for Renegades to confirm some of these kills if SSG is able to get all their ultimates off efficiently and properly, right? If everything goes perfectly for both teams, you think it'd be pretty hard for Renegades to confirm those kills eventually once all that safety starts to really hit its stride.
And like you said, all of that safety coming through, you had to look at the positives, I think, for the Renegades, right? Hell comes in with a cleanse. We've seen, based on past plays from Hell, that can come in handy. You're healing multi-targeted, so you can hit everybody, as well as some movement speed in there. She does a lot of damage. I think Venenu can play, I think, the biggest role for Renegades to find success in this if this Hell continues on a good path for them throughout the rest of the game. But it depends on so many little factors, right? Where exactly is this Osiris targeting? Is his anti-heal on point? Is his slow potential on point for variety? As well as the hunters when they come through. I mean, Vote's already made himself kind of hurt throughout this game on this Jingwei. Barazo 1 and 2, if we can see him turn that around into some kills, it'll be solid.
Variety able to just walk on through. Thank you, Osiris passive, helping him out there a little bit. As Renegades had started up the Fury for a moment, but they ended up dropping it. SSD are here in full defense with about 1,000 gold lead. Nothing truly substantial as Renegades want to even things back up. The Fury now down below half, down below 2,000, and Renegades have the confirmation. Cheerio inside the destruction node keeps stepping forward for more action, but the Fields of Love deters that. Cheerio makes it back out. Jake blinks in but can't find the damage. Variety ends up missing as well as Cheerio jukes everyone, and Nika's able to get the kill. They eventually claim the life of this Kali, but Nika in the back is all alone. Barracuda hunts him down. That makes it 2 for 1 in favor of Renegades, plus they got the Fury. What a fight from the Chaos side team.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Nika goes down with his ult. I guess just, you know, saving it for whatever reasons you might need it there in the afterlife. Doesn't have that healing come through, doesn't have the ability to maybe stay in the backline. And there was bad news. The minute I saw destruction, Dardes had to use all of his cooldowns there to keep Cheerio alive, and that's when things get a little shaky. If all of that safety that you had highlighted disappears at the beginning of the fight, you can't use it to disengage, and I think they got to feel that the bad way. That's a great fight for the Renegades. Yeah, you lose Lasbra, maybe not the best target to go down on your team, but honestly, it's worthwhile because you're still able to pick up 2 on the other side. You still get that Gold Fury, and now Barra has been bolstered with confidence.
Yo, but Vote's fighting inside the minions. Barra finally now able to get an even fight, but he's so far behind. That's a solo for Vote, and Barra was ahead. That's not a bad fight that Barra took, but the minions getting involved. The body blocks are a little bit too strong, or blocking the autos, and Vote ends up coming out ahead.
And you have to look at it. Item-wise, Barra was straight up ahead in that fight. Like you said, it's a good one for him to take. How they're looking for picks. If you can continue finding little one-person picks like this, that's what opens up the map for Spacestation Gaming. I mean, 17 minutes in, 17 kills. This has not been slow pace. This is not usual for Spacestation. They do not care about keeping things slow and just patiently waiting for some late-game team fights. They're going to keep going at this rate, and honestly, I like it a little bit more. I think it fits for them here. It's controlling the Renegades. It's unfortunate for them to lose that Fury. They're in a good spot to continue this amount of pressure, especially if they find picks like that, one-on-ones like that. It's been locked down on Barracuda and Lasbra. So far, Jake has been the one, I think, alongside Variety that's set up a lot of these kills.
Yeah, I mean, things are starting to look a little bit rougher now for Renegades, and I want to make sure that, you know, that it's clear. I don't think that's a bad decision by Barra at all going in there. Just things don't quite end up going his way. Vote was able to find some crits. Again, the minions end up surviving. It does a lot of stuff that didn't quite go right for him. And he ends up losing that fight, and it kind of looks bad. But things are still very much even in this one, Core, kind of as you're talking about, right? I mean, the levels are dead even all the way across the board. The experience is separated by nothing. It's essentially SSC are up 3 kills, but that doesn't really translate to anything in the numbers. This one, we're coming into the 18, 19-minute mark, the mid-game of this one now, Core, and things are entirely up in the air. It's just going to come down to the execution and how these two teams end up fighting. And if things go the way they went in that last fight, where Destruction and Undying Love and all the healing end up being used just trying to keep Cheerio alive, and he dies and never gets to get his damage off, then I think Renegades are going to win more fights than they lose if things can continue to go that way for him.
Well, Cheerio, though, has already finished those chin size, has the haste and katana, is working on even more that will allow him to lock people down or just stay alive, and maybe more so maneuverable in the backline there. So I'm excited to continue watching him, plus his speed buff, if he picks it up. There it is, as he turns around to grab it. All of this is just enabling him. Kali, the reason we talk about her being such a late game god is not because her scaling as much as it is the items she needs. I guess those two go hand in hand, where it is that late game you just hit so ridiculously hard, but you need those items online before you can really pick up your true potential. 2, 3, and 5 at 19 minutes. That's a great starting point for Cheerio here. I think it's only uphill now that he's 15. This is where things start to get a lot more difficult when you're facing a Kali. If she gets to the back line, I highly expect, Barra, Lasbra, Venenu, any of them will get slaughtered before they can do anything.
We're looking to start this fight with Jake, and Cheerio does plenty of damage to him, mitigate wounds, heals him up to about half, a little bit of healing coming from Venenu as well. So Variety ends up making it out of there, not Variety, but Jake. And I think Jake's starting to realize as Pyromancer goes down for SSG just how much damage Cheerio can do if he can stick on you with this hastened kin size combo that chews through these HP-reliant builds. You said it, man. Cheerio, when he's got some items on, is going to be hurting, and I think Jake just found out.
Yeah, I mean, Chinsai's alone, especially with the build right now that Hercules has, a lot of focus on health. That's why you see a lot of hunters, depending on the situation, work that into their build. Vote doesn't have to here because he has Cherio there to help deal with it. There's a lot of protections and stuff on the other side, but the physical damage that you're doing, 3% of the maximum health there in that passive is the key here, because when you look at the items that Jake has, they're getting a lot of health there. That Shield of Regrowth is only health. The protections are going to be helpful there from the Contagion, but it's not going to be enough entirely. 300 pure health that you're hitting blood, and then 150. I forgot about that even, being on Contagion. Yeah. It just means so much more for Cherio. The minute he steps on him, that's a lot of damage he's going to be able to deal. 3% of that is a huge chunk.
Getting good effective tankiness nicely, but Renegades have the anti-heal, the upgraded first on Divine Ruin Brawlers, double Contagion even. Not going to be as impactful if they're in the middle, if they're the same parts of the fight, but if they're spread out, that could potentially be huge for him, as this next fight looks like it's going to be starting around this Fury. Oracle Vision will be going over to SSG, but Renegades still seem to control the neutral positioning around it, as if kind of daring SSG to come in. The pull off the mark, Jake takes a little bit of poke, then SSG start to back up.
This is where being able to know about all those status effects, as you had kind of highlighted, you know, having double Contagion helpful if they're just spread out enough across the fight. They don't stack, but like you said, maybe making this a much wider gap and more difficult for SSG to find a safe place to heal that's away from them. It still opens them up to maybe have a target in mind, right? You want to get rid of this Osiris and this Hercules. Maybe you want to get in there for this Primal Beard before it goes down.
Can't make it in time. Renegades burn it quickly, and that is the Fury down in favor of the Chaos Squad. I talked about how even this game is. It's still close, completely close. There's only 3 or 400 separate them, and this is 4 or 5 minutes later. These teams are both starting to slow this pace down a little bit, but I think, I don't know, that might just favor Spacestation, excuse me, just if we're looking back at their history. This is a team that oftentimes will be a little bit behind at this stage in the game, and then everything seems to start to click there for them. They like to play these mid to late game team comps. They understand that when the 5-on-5 starts, they can trust their team fight a little bit better. This is going to be a tough one here for Renegades, considering the comp for SSG and SSG's history and being good in these types of situations.
And also, it's one of those things that it maybe just sounds like there's SSG, because they're so good and because they're at the top, are getting favored. But you have to think about it. I mean, that's 2 Furies that Renegades have picked up, and they're just barely ahead in gold here. You know, 200 is nothing. Yeah, you factor in a Pyromancer that at least nullifies maybe one of them, but they've been very consistent, I think, in terms of Renegades for where their objective control has been on the left-hand side of the map. And so it's not a good sign that you're only a little bit ahead here. It shows maybe where SSG's farm has been going, and even Vote over here on the right-hand side of the map, making sure he's getting even more under his belt. And they're all impactful. This is the point where Fire Giant starts coming into the equation. 23 minutes in, the next fight, one good pick really does make a big difference.
Especially if you end up getting picked. Variety is A-okay, though he does take some damage. Cursed Aunt coming out now from Jake to try and deny that healing coming through, but it's actually SSG that are the aggressors. Mara puts the ult over the wall to help out, and it's still not enough. Dardes is able to claim the life of Jake. I think some back-off damage was pretty key there towards the end, and SSG do pick the Hercules. That's pretty critical for them. Now, with the 5v4 advantage and having every ult except Rappers, they're in a pretty favorable spot to decide where they want to go next.
And they're going for some deep zoning. The way Renegades are positioned, you won't dive. Honestly, Raffer and Vote are maybe in a dangerous position. You know, Cherio's pretty far away from this fight as well. So there's a good position for Renegades to try and get aggressive here, but the window closed the minute Cherio joined this fight. Now it's awkward to try and go in. But with Raffer starting up the Fire Giant, they should have enough damage to just take this down before Renegades can respond.
You're right, all of Renegades are so zoned out. More than zoned, they have some good chances for kills as Dardes ends up falling, but they're still burning the Fire Giant in the background. It's down below 3,000, but Renegades are now close. Renegades can throw their hat in the ring, but SSG just barely are able to confirm the objective. Vote gets over the wall with the ultimate, but Rapper has been stopped by the stuns coming through from Renegades. They're body blocking, and they've even got the heart bomb on him. No stun, but he falls anyway. I think the tether did that last bit of work. So SSG, they do take down the Fire Giant, but they only get the buff on 3 members as Renegades make it through just in time.
But the 3 members, you get Vote, Cherio, Nika. Nika maybe needs it for the sustain at this point just because of all of the anti-heal that's going to help control this Ramana. But when you look at Cherio and Vote getting it, that means that that tank shred is just even more enabled. The tower shred is going to be there, but they have to get into a position where they can do something. Renegades get Pyromancer, they're looking to get a tier 2 here, and Nika doesn't have much he can do about it.
No, he doesn't. Basically just watching as this tier 2 tower takes damage. But they still don't have a ton on it. Now that Barracuda is here, he can help, but Jake took a ton of damage from Cherio still. This Kali is a problem for Jake. He is effectively not tanky against her. His best bet for that tankiness is against the damage coming from Dardez or Nika, but Cherio shreds him. And that is enough for them to defend that tier 2 tower and right. Now SSG can get back on offense. Cherio is pushing up the wave in mid. The rest of SSG appear to be chasing in right, but they didn't bring the minion wave with them. So they'll have to tank up this tower the hard way if they want to look.
And I actually like this. Duggan just hovered it, but the Oni Hunter's Garb, even though it gives more health over, which means technically Cherio hits harder, does give you some mitigations. Maybe if you can have someone else, namely Variety, I guess in this case, chase down Cherio and keep him off your back, it does enable you a lot more.
Cherio has to use the ultimate to survive. His Lazarus ultimate let him cut the gap. Cherio has now leaped away, while the rest of his team got the tier 2 tower in right and are now threatening the tier 2 in mid. They know they have the 3v3 here, and Venenu can't live through it. The hell gets dove. Cherio somehow still standing, leaps away from the Caltrops as Lasbra tries to close the gap with the slow, but Blink gets Cherio out of there. Absolutely crazy that he has managed to survive through all of this pressure and open up the space for his team to get the tier 2 in right. But the tier 2 in mid still stands as SSG are now looking for a bit of a collapse. They want to find Lasbra and Variety alone here and left as they all get slowed by the Caltrops. They've got a chance to still start this fight off on a good foot. They drop what looks like the horrific to try and lock Variety in, but that's an Osiris hard enough to kill even when you've got him isolated.
Yeah, being able to use that passive as well to just ignore anything like a Riptide. No River's Rebuke available. Raffer is just one large cooldown away from that being a stellar cutoff path to be able to lock them down. Otherwise, well, unfortunately, Cherio does finally get caught out here. With no ult, no beads, no blink, it does show that he is fallible. You just have to find those right windows of opportunity with no Dardez around as well. It's easier to kill him, and that maybe puts a huge damper on SSG and any control they had. Even though they've got towers in their favor, even though they still technically have a buff in their favor, and what looks like they might get a Primal Fury in their favor, it just feels like Renegades are keeping up pace wonderfully.
Whoa, Renegades take the Primal Fury away. Nice little objective there for him. Lord of the Afterlife lands on a Dardez. That takes away the healing, and Lasper connects the ultimate to close the gap, and Dardez through it all, still stinging. Nika gets Lasper, but Dardez eventually will drop. So it has been 1-for-1 in this small engagement around the Fury. If you add in the Cherio kill, it's now 2-for-2 because Nika stomps on Barracuda. Vote has the damage to shred through Jake, and now Venenu and Variety are trying their best to run. The slows are there. They made it back underneath the tier 2 tower, but for a little while longer, Vote and Nika have the FG buff, and they can use it to put extra pressure onto this tier 2 tower, and they'll claim it here in left.
And they had to do it now because they're about to lose it 5 seconds from now. And they're still walking forward. I mean, with the minion wave, backdoor protection's gone, they could put some good pressure onto this Phoenix. Might even be able to find a kill depending on where Vote wants to put his damage, because they're getting aggressive onto Venenu. And just being able to shred something like the Hell right now would stagger him out wonderfully. I mean, everybody else is about to respawn in about 15 seconds, so it could give you a big win.
But it looks like the Phoenix got reset back to Vote, I believe, and all that. You saw Nika trying to hold it, but had to get rid of it, and that ends up hurting him in this one. Nika now stuck on the wrong side of the Phoenix. Variety takes that kill as well, so the left side Phoenix stands. SSG over commit, and they're only up about 3k gold, though they have exposed the left side and right side Phoenix with that Fire Giant push, and maybe gotten a bit of an opening out of all that.
I mean, now you're in a beautiful position, right? 40 seconds without Nika, 30 seconds without Vote. Cherio and Dardez are still a thorn in your side, but everyone on your team is respawning, save for the staggered out kill there on Venenu. So you can at least get pressure on the right-hand side. If you go for a Fire Giant, then you're trying to get it, right when Venenu is going to respawn. But ideally, you're going to be able to isolate someone like Raffer, maybe Cherio, and lock them down with a kill before you start up something this big. 3 members on SSG is still scary.
Dardez has been pulled in. He's absolutely the wrong spot, but he ends up going to a Riptide, so he ends up getting moved. Now Lasper's ultimate has him dancing through the fight. Variety, the only one still hunting Dardez, and they managed to catch him, though Cherio did get the kill on the Barra elsewhere. And Cherry's still stuck in the middle of everybody, looking for more damage on the Lasper. Has to use Destruction in order to stay alive, but Lasper is low. Cherio can't make his way there, Variety gets the kill, and that makes it 2-for-1 in favor of Renegades. But this was sort of a staggered fight for SSG. They were never really on even footing here, and stopping Renegades from starting up the Fire Giant still seems worth it to me.
There's been a lot of SSG praise in this game, but honestly, Renegades 30 minutes in, keeping pace with Spacestation. Even if they lose one, you know, you're getting 2 kills in the process. You have a real good grasp on the Fire Giant pit. This is stellar from them. I mean, this is something that I didn't really expect to watch coming in today. Very similar to not expecting what to expect out of Obey yesterday, even though it ended up being a 2-0. It's still great from them. If Jake can get a pick here, that's a big win for Renegades.
Nika's in the back line looking for Venenu, now stomping him out, has the Frostbound for these slows, and Venenu can't get away. Vote gets there in time to add the damage. It's a double kill for the Jingwei pilot on the side of SSG, and Variety forced to use the Lord of the Afterlife just to escape. So that makes his 2 kills on the back of this fight in favor of SSG, and now Jake is the next one in some trouble. He's been knocked up. Looks like got a little bit of help from the Mantle proc as he heads back into this battle to maybe look for a little bit more. Driving Strike lands onto Rapper, but the Fields of Love has everybody stuck. Rapper falls, so the damage from Barracuda as Renegades turn the tide back in their favor. These fight score are back and forth, close. They're overextending, a little bit sloppy from both of these teams, but SSG have 4 members alive near the FG, and they're going to start it up.
And honestly, again, if you're Renegades, you were maybe waiting on Venenu to respawn, you needed a pick. Right now, there's only 3 members up for Renegades, one of them Barracuda, and you know his ult is down. You can get aggressive onto this FG. You don't have to worry about Rapper having it or not. He's got sustain out the wazoo from just your team. This is a great pick for them being able to get that. And now 32 minutes in, they can get aggressive. That tier 2 in mid might as well mean nothing. Even Variety's health bar might be disappearing faster than the Renegades would like. This definitely is starting to scream some Phoenix pressure. They just need these minions to ride up with them.
Well, they have the minions pretty close. Like, everyone is at least up, all the minion waves, excuse me, are at least up past that middle part of the map and beyond it, up near, like, the purple and blue buff. But it looks like SSG are not going to push with them. Renegades step up and push out the wave. The Pyromancer goes down, and SSG are going to use this time to take a bit of a reset. Look at how these builds are rounding out. There's an Aussie in there for Vote, so he's got double lifesteal to go along with a little bit of crit splashed in from Wind Demon. You can see the Stone Cutting and the Toxic Blade from Nika. He's all in on this auto attack build to get damage done with the autos. Cheerio has a Silver Branch on the tail end to leverage all this attack speed. SSG are hitting some of their big power spikes, and they're ready to step in and look for a fight.
I'm always a little scared when I start seeing those crits pop here for Vote. 663 against a Fury. Probably not going to see that same number against something like Jake right now, but it's still frightening to know that it exists in terms of damage. It makes me flash back to the one-on-one where he was able to take down Barracuda just a little bit ago. So that's a dangerous game to be playing. Plus, he's 6-2-8, 7-2-7 for Nika. I mean, the 2 picks that maybe, well, one of them should have a good time. One of them maybe should be struggling there. And the Vamana, they don't seem to care right now. They don't care how the matchup's supposed to go. They're playing it very well. And I think it's the isolation factor Nika's bringing that's helping him out. Vote just has carry potential. We've always seen it in him, and we know that it's going to exist. This is going to be an interesting split. I'm excited to see how Renegades can tackle this, just because their defense is pretty solid. As long as they have a Hell, that healing coming through is going to be great for them. But the Curse Donk is up, a Horrific is up, as well as some of the anti-heal passives and items that SSG will have here. And it's going to come down to a lot of execution in this next few minutes, as well as the grouping from either of these teams to make sure that Renegades either stay alive or whether they go down.
Well, right now it's a 2-2-1 split. The Fields of Love is committed all the way in left. Rapper falls to about half HP, but Cheerio's getting aggressive. Laspra can't make it out of there in time. Dardes gets the damage, but Laspra is the one that goes down. Now the Cursed Ankh ends up landing on the Dardes and Cheerio to stop the healing, but the ultimate from Rapper has cut off Jake's escape path. He has the Mid-Guardian. Doug highlighted it. That's going to make it hard for these auto attackers to consistently shred him, but still, he's starting to fall. And way in the back, Venenu is under pressure as well from Nika. That means Venenu gets pushed out, Jake gets pushed out, and the mid Phoenix ends up falling. Now SSG, considering a Titan dive, they rethink it, head back over towards the right. At least Nika does. He's threatening the right Phoenix all on his own.
I mean, Dardes still has all of his relics. They could get aggressive. Cheerio still has destruction. I like them staying for the fight, but no, Cheerio dies without using his ult. That's great for the Renegades.
They do at least get the right side Phoenix, though. That was Nika that took care of that. Dardes, stuck in the middle of all the pressure from Renegades, will end up falling as Nika cannot get to Barracuda before he makes it back to the fountain. So he rejoins the fight as Variety drops to Vote's hand. The damage from the Jing Wei is starting to prove
going for
too
this?
much. And I think SSG are considering going for an end. There's 4 members of Renegades up, though. That's going to make it hard. They change their mind, turn back around, and look for the leave as Vote might be able to burn Jake really quickly. They don't have the time, but the ultimate
wall.
from Rapper isolates Jake. They can't afford to commit. The walls will do the damage by themselves, and Jake will end up falling.
And now it's Vote versus the world, though everyone's
What
left
is-
him for dead. He's going to be able to ult and stay alive, but the Renegades want blood.
Nika tries to come to the backside of the fight. Can't find anything there. Lazarus ultimate only connects with Rapper, but it's
Well
enough to get him
played.
close to find the damage onto Vote. Nika goes in the back, but there's too much damage coming through from Barracuda. Some help from Lasbra, and they're able to get the kill. So now Rapper, the only one standing. He's got plenty of towers up, though, and Renegades gonna have a hard time without Vera pushing through all of this. Dardes is all the way back up.
Now, this is where the map state is changing. Renegades just lost 2 Phoenixes. Spacestation still have all Tier 2 towers. Not a single Phoenix that can even be threatened by the Renegades right now. That being said, if they can get these 3 Tier 2s, that equalizes the gold lead, again, to virtually nothing. They maintain, they stay alive, maybe not the best. They're bleeding pretty profusely with the 2 Phoenixes down, but in 30 seconds, there's going to be a Fire Giant. You can contest it and try to put SSG in their place, or just try to steal it, whichever one comes to your mind. And then you can take down, what, 2 Tier 2s at half health, 1 sitting there in mid at full health. It would easily fall to this team if they get that Fire Giant. Renegades are still very much in this, even though, again, they're down, they're bleeding, they're wounded. They have a way to get themselves into a win condition. It does kind of require some mistakes and maybe slip-ups from SSG, but with how aggressive they've been playing, you could try and find them. It's not going to be too far-fetched to think that someone will be out of position.
Look at this. Bit of a flank from Dardes and Tyrio, but Renegades had the wards to spot this out. So they all turn around to deal with it. But Tyrio blinks in, finds the 2-man stun. Fields of Love is on him, and he uses Destruction to barely stay alive. Gets the kill onto Vin, but that wasn't his target. No reset from Tyrio, but Boot takes care of Barracuda. In the back, Lasbra has no way out as Nika stomps on him. Gets some help from the back off, and that is it from Lasbra. And Variety now locked down the spell. It's just the tank still alive at this point, and they do not have the damage to survive. The CC should overwhelm them, and Variety still standing. But look where Vote is heading. He's just going to go try to end the game.
I mean, that's the right call, right? Look, you've got fire minions with you. You've only got 2 tanks that are fighting on the other side. You should be able to kill the Titan here, no problem. And now there's only Jake left.
You're absolutely right, Gore. Vote can do enough to end the game. AwesomeJake can't find a back. SSG keep them busy and lock this game up in 37 minutes. The heavy sustained comp from SSG proved to be too much, but Gore, this was never a heavily coordinated team fight versus a heavily coordinated team fight. They were scrapping in this one.
Oh yeah, that was absolutely just see what we can do. I mean, from the get-go, right? That first blood happens to Vote, and I think a switch happens in SSG where they decide that they aren't going to play it the way they normally play. They are just going to fight whenever they get the chance, see what happens, and luckily for them, even though it takes them almost 40 minutes, they're still able to seal the deal. I think this is a good sign, though. I mean, look, you have Obey yesterday, Renegades today. So far, pushing SSG to the limit where it's only at these last-minute team fights that things are really changing. I think it's a great sign of life from Renegades here, and I'm excited to see what Game 2 has.
Me too. They were able to take SSG the distance. You talked about how impressive it was at the 23-minute mark, while 14 minutes later must be even better. But can they find a way to bounce back in Game 2? We'll be able to find out after this break.
it's not as quick and easy as SSG might have expected in game number 1, but the heavy sustain gets it done. About a 38-minute game here. No amount of anti-heal seemed to be helping the Renegades. Aggro still with me to break down game number 1. Ryan, the Jets were on, but maybe not the temperature that we were hoping for the Renegades to have in game 1. SSG, a couple stumbles, maybe a trip up here or there, but ultimately get the win.
I was impressed with the way the Renegades played a lot of this game, Dave. I mean, this game was close throughout the early, and that's despite a disastrous early start in the duo lane. I mean, they first blood Vote, and all that does is make Vote angry. 47,000 player damage. That is an absurd number for a sub 40-minute game.
Oh, yeah.
But it's partially because there was just so much brawling in this game, and Vote was able to get to all of it because he's Jing Wei. It was just really, really impressive from him, and I loved the way that Nika was able to pilot this Vamana pick as well. I went in talking about how worried I was about this selection, and I think that my concerns were pretty valid still, but Nika was still able to get good value out of the base kit, not rely too heavily on that ultimate, and to only die a handful of times in a game where you're going to be getting cursed, onked, and anti-healed every time you press 4, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I mean, it was a final pick into a composition that already had a lot of sustain and one that can get mitigated by sustain. 8-3 or anti-sustain, rather. 8-3 and 11 for Vote here. Vote, I think Aggro Vote has had one of the hottest streaks of games out of any hunter in this league here as of late. 8-3 and 11 in this one, 8-3 and 7 in his previous game, 5-3 and 7 before that, 2-0-5 before that, 6-1-4 before that. This guy is just playing so well right now, and he's going to be very difficult to stop. And normally you see a top damage dealer like 2, 3, 4, 5,000 damage ahead. 46,000 damage is a massive number. Also, when you put it in the perspective that he's 16,000 damage higher than anyone else in the game.
Absolutely nuts. I think it's a great point that Vote's been playing really well recently. I think he's playing like the best hunter in the SPL right now, and when you add that in to a 3v3 core that looks really unstoppable, and the fact that Nika is still one of, if not the best solo laners in the entire SPL right now, you start to understand how SSG has become this cohesive, excellent team that's really working. If Vote's playing like this, man, good luck.
Yeah, it's not the Amaterasu, but it's the Vamana for Nika in this game. This team's firing on all cylinders, despite it taking 38 minutes to get over the finish line. Picks and bans for game number 2 will join us here in just a moment, and we'll see how these teams adapt. We were definitely curious that, the Renegades, we praised the Ama ban. Yamoja's a big topic of conversation between these two teams. Somebody's got to either ban it or pick it if you're the Renegades. But despite all the strategy, I was still kind of blown away that SSG were able to get away with the picks that they got. It seems like everyone was on one of their top 2 picks, maybe outside of Nika there for Spacestation Gaming. So I think there's definitely some pivots to be made here, Aggro, maybe in the ban phase to start off for the Renegades.
Yeah, here's where I'd start. Don't ban Ganesh and ban Yamoja instead. That's where I'd start. That seems like a pretty good area to start for me. She's too good, man. She's too good. You either have to dedicate your entire game plan. You have to dedicate your entire game plan to beating Yamoja, or you have to ban her. Those are your options whenever you aren't picking her. And Renegades have, again, not shown that they can or will pick her, and that makes their picks and ban segments really hard. And look, I'm sure that fans are sick of hearing me say that it changes the way that they have to play. I bring it up every single Renegades picks and bans. But here's the deal. She's the most banned god in the game. Her win rate's insane. If you can't play her, you are doing your team a disservice. And Renegades is one of the only teams in the league that has shown that they cannot get that pick under wraps quite yet. They've got to do it, Dave, in time for Worlds. I just think they have to. They have to be so much better at picking and banning than every other team to beat them in picks and bans with one less ban. Why do that? Just start playing Emoja.
Especially against SSG, right? I mean, where Dardes is going to be pulling a lot of bans anyway. You want to be able to ban the Erlang Shen against Cherio. Nika pulls an Amaterasu. SSG is one of the hardest teams to pick ban against anyway, without having maybe a crutch coming into the pick ban phase that you have to kind of lean on. Aphrodite makes her way through here again. Dardes didn't necessarily blow us all away in Game 1, but it's the potential. I mean, the sustain and the damage that he can provide, and we have seen him provide on this pick in the past, is just too strong. And this is the struggle, isn't it? I mean, against SSG, you ban what you think is going to be the most powerful. So I do like the Jingwei going. I do like the Yamoja going. The Amaterasu just makes sense because of how good Nika is on that pick. But then you have to leave open something against this team. And Erlang Shen for Cheerio is nothing that I'm ever excited to be playing against.
Or Aphrodite for Dardes. I mean, this is 2 out of 3 of their mid 3v3. And, oh, you know what's probably going to come next? Yamoja. And then you're going to go, well, Afro, Erlang Shen, Yamoja is the top god for Dardes, Cheerio, Raffer. Good luck beating that. Now,
right.
I like the adjustment of going to the Circuit, but everyone thinks of Circuit as a counter pick to Aphrodite. I actually think Afro's matchup into Circuit is pretty good because Circuit is really, really good at killing one person. And you know what Aphrodite's really, really good at doing? Keeping one person alive. You're going to anti-heal her, sure, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Yamoja being banned, of course, excuse me, I misspoke earlier. Now you're going to have that Ganesh instead. Still a top pick for Raffer, a very difficult matchup for Circuit because so much of what she does takes time to go off. Silence is going to interrupt things like Deathbane, Cobra's Kiss. Getting silence as soon as you hop off someone's head on last breath doesn't exactly feel great. I think SSG's at a great spot to take this one 2-0.
Wonder if then the Renegades now, we reach that second phase of bans. Vote still needs his pick here. Renegades feel like the Jingwei is enough of a threat. They ban her in that first wave. Cupid, of course, picked by the Renegades. Rom, very popular as that next hunter, and he will be banned out here. So we'll have to see what else Vote kind of has in that back pocket. But Vote as well, Aggro, has shown the ability to be flexible on some of these hunter picks. I don't think anything is going to super catch him off guard here. The 8-3 and 7 game I brought up was Hachiman for him, so maybe that's something we need to keep our eyes out for here. Cerberus and Guan Yu, though, those are some interesting bands. Definitely something that we've seen rise to a bit more engagement success, I suppose, is a way to word it. So I think SSG, maybe their head's in the right place with their second wave of bands.
I agree, and this leaves open Wukong here for Nika if they want to take that for him. Just a really good dive selection that has good survivability. A matchup that's a little bit awkward against Circuit because if you start channeling Somersault Cloud, she latches on with Last Breath, you become anti-healed for basically the whole duration of your ultimate, so you don't get that guaranteed sustain like he often gets, but still takes you out of combat, gives you a big damage dunk when you come down. I'm just interested in what Vote's going to go for. We're not seeing a Freya ban here, and she's starting to lose popularity. If memory serves, Vote has played a decent amount of Freya. I just don't think she's worth picking. I'd much rather see Vote opt for something like that Hachiman that you brought up earlier.
Mm-hmm. How about this towards the end here? Achilles for variety. I mean, look, we have seen Achilles do so well, and that's not necessarily where my eyes went here. The Chang'e, only a couple of plays, or picks rather, here in this phase of the SPL. Is that a pick you think that rounds out this Renegades draft in a way that you're happy with?
It's an interesting pick because it has anti-heal built in. You get 40% anti-heal on the 3, so you build Divine Ruin, you press 3 around the Aphrodite or the Erlang Shen. They're like 90% anti-healed, all because of you. So you're doing good work in that regard. But it's not long-range damage. In fact, you look at what Renegades have, everything is really close range. I mean, Chang'e is a melee range mage. Achilles needs you to be melee range in order to stun you. Combat dodge, pretty close range. Circuit 2, I mean, that's short range. You're really relying on Jake to bring targets to you, and then you being able to insta-kill off of that. I just don't know that Chang'e is going to bring that as much as Renegades want. Now, if Renegades can pull SSG into that same sort of all-over-the-place brawl style that we saw towards the middle and end of Game 1, I think adding that sustain, we saw how important the Hell was for them in Game 1. You have that in the Chang'e now. I think it can work, but if SSG is able to keep Renegades at arm's length, I think they should be able to win this one fairly easily.
Yeah, a little self-sustain for the Renegades maybe keeps them in some of those fights a little bit longer. SSG, they have to switch things up, but nothing that makes them uncomfortable here for Game 2. It's time for the Renegades to bounce back. SSG versus the Renegades. Game 2. Let's kick it off.
Thanks, Dawson and Aggro. Still me and Gore here with Doug on the camera, and Aggro leaning heavily towards SSG in this one. Gore, and I can't think of a whole lot of reasons to disagree with him. I mean, Dardes back on this Aphrodite. You do finally get Raffer off the Emoja, but only for him to fall down to the Ganesh, which he's equally as potent on. Cherio plays the Erlong Shin. The best you've done, I think, is force Vote down to this Hachiman, but even that's not still a bad pick. I think SSG are in a great spot.
Yeah, I mean, you come into this, again, a lot of healing. Cherio got a pentakill on Erlong, so you really do have to give it a lot of respect. Ganesh has been great for Raffer. If they get aggressive early on here for the Renegades, it's not going to be too surprising to see them successful in the first 10 minutes or so, just because Ganesh, as well as I think Vote, Dardes, and maybe to an extent Cherio, they're going to take a little bit of time to come online and maybe scrap as much as they did last game. But I think there is something, and maybe some merit, to what the Renegades have drafted, what they're bringing into this, and it comes in the form of the anti-heal, right? Sobek's got 50% anti-heal on one of his abilities. Add in maybe a contagion or something, and that can jump up to like 75%. Venenu, if he gets a Divine Ruin, which I can't imagine he wouldn't, gets 90% anti-heal thanks to the 50% that he already has on his ability as well there in his Waltz. And then you add in Cirquet's 100% anti-heal. There's a window of opportunity, I think, for the Renegades to find consistent kills. It's just how often those are going to be up. I mean, one of them's an ultimate, and one of them, or the other two, require you to be incredibly close to your opponent that you're trying to anti-heal. Not necessarily easily done with an Aphrodite. So while it's all there, Renegades definitely have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, I think Renegades put a lot of pressure on Ven and Bera to have potent Waxing Moons and Fields of Love, right? I mean, those ultimates are so big for them in terms of the way they can control these team fights. Yes, they still have Jake with that Charge Prey, which is probably going to be their best initiation, but in terms of, like, denying any dive from SSG or looking for big AoE control, those abilities are going to kind of be it for them. I mean, you talked about it, though. They've got some good anti-heal option score. They'll be able to create some opportunities for sure. We saw how well Renegades fought into SSG last game. So it's not as if this is a mismatch or anything. Our Renegades are just outclassed. That certainly is not the case, but I think that it's hard not to just lean towards SSG here at this point as Raffer dashing forward, but not a whole lot going to happen there on this level 2 Sobek.
Yeah, again, when you look at the damage pressure they're going to be able to put out, Hachiman might be able to get some good damage out, but again, Ganesh, if you go watch the Grandmaster's class, Raffer doesn't think too highly of his early game, and it's just because that's where he's weakest.
No, he's not expecting Ganesh to come flying out of the gates the same way a Hercules would, or another pick like that, as both of our solo laners are low. Variety and Nika trading blows, but neither one willing to stick around when there's a minion wave adding in damage. So they both end up falling back. And we saw this similar pace in Game 1, right? I mean, eventually they started really fighting and they never slowed down for 37 uninterrupted minutes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar like that happening in this game as well. These are two teams who are unafraid to take fights, and neither one looking to back down.
And I feel like the Renegades, at least in my mind, are more likely to start engaging those fights a little bit sooner. I think, again, SSG, unless Cherio really wants something to go down, I don't think a lot of them are looking for these early fights. Similar to last game, most of them scale better into the late game, and they might scale a little bit better if they get there purely through farming than through fighting. But Cherio wants something, and Venenu is going to be the target.
Lasper has shown up, but he's really not helping much here at all so far. The knock-up is there, and kind of right in the face of Lasper. Cherio is able to do all the damage they need. Plenty of help from Dardes there as well, of course, but in that 2v2, SSG were way ahead. Now, how can Lasper and Jake prevent this red buff from being invaded? That's the next big question. Well, guess you kind of got your answer there, huh? Looks like Renegades were able to just barely defend it on the tail end, I think, with Dardes not picking it up, and Cherio and the boys leaving, even though they got the pick, couldn't quite get the red.
And I still think they get a lot of the experience that you need in a position like that. I think a lot will be telling based on where Venenu goes as of right now, since he's just clearing off a wave. But they'll get their own red buff. They'll be fine hanging out. And you know, I'm going to roll it back to that fight just because when you look at it, you were saying, like, Lasper not doing much. I almost challenge anyone out there to show me what you're going to do against an Erlong Shin and Aphrodite. Like, good luck. Like, you can maybe taunt them, separate them slightly with some CC, but no ult available to really grab anyone at that time. the most you're hoping for is that maybe Venenu's going to get some crazy amount of burst damage. Maybe somebody could tick to level 5. They just didn't have the advantage of experience in their favor. Now, a fight like that goes completely different for them. Even with the taunt there for Cherio, I think that would go in favor of Renegades. So they picked their opportunity really well there on SSG to make sure they get this small lead.
So good timing then from SSG, really. It sounds like they're kind of capitalizing on a window where Renegades couldn't fight back quite as much as they might be able to later on down the line. But it's scary. I think they're going to need to be able to prove they can fight. If you're losing fights in the 2v2 on your tower line, doesn't bode well for the rest of the game. So we'll see how well they can fight back now that everyone's ticked over to 5 and has these ults. Renegades got to be careful here, though. SSG have shown up here in numbers with Venenu still in mid. I think Renegades recognize that. Not much opportunity for any buff invades there. The blue will be successfully grabbed. SSG leave those Harpies up for Cheerio to get as the rest of them move up to defend that mid wave. But we got our first indication, I think, of how SSG are planning on playing this fight, or playing this game, rather. They are comfortable with Cheerio being that first man in and just kind of testing the response from Renegades and seeing what he can get away with. And in that situation, he was able to basically 100-0 Vin with some help from Dardas.
And I think what we're going to see is maybe more of that, right? When Cheerio decides he wants someone dead, he's going to be able to pin him. But specifically now that Raffer's level 5, Dharmic Pillars as an ability, especially on fights in the jungle, lock people up, they lock them away, they control the pace of the fight. Or if they're running and you angle it properly, you can make them run straight into a pillar and lock them down. And it does a decent chunk of damage as well. Oh, by the way, prot shred, slows, all of that good stuff on the side. I think Raffer's going to be essential for a lot of these fights. And it's going to revolve around him, Cheerio, Dardes just hanging out behind him and kind of enabling them to continue being aggressive. And that will just make things a little easier for SSG. I think the biggest downside to Aphrodite, though, is that you're not necessarily getting the same big burst mage damage that you would have from something like, say, a Hebo, even Giannis when we see, someone like E United run them. So you are relying heavily on Cheerio's damage to make things work.
Cheerio now sandwiched, still has some help, gets a 3-man taunt, but interrupted in the middle of that 72 transformation by the last breath. Well played from Lasbra in the 3v2, and the executes a little bit too early, and Lasbra jumps in and now has a hard time leaving. Can't escape with the Dharmic Pillars, lock him in, and Dardes, maybe even getting one bestowed by Raffer in that case, will take the kill. SSG find a return with the 1v1, but you see that Renegade's not afraid to get into SSG's jungle and start to fight a little bit.
And this is what this composition should be doing, right? I want this composition on Renegades to fight more often. I think Serket has a better early game right now than what we're going to see out of Erlang Shen. His abilities, or his items, I should say, are going to enable him to deal that damage. It's the autos late game that are really a nuisance, and it looks like he's going for a chin size first here on Cheerio. So you've got a little bit of a ramp here that I think Lasbra can use, again, a little window of opportunity where SSG aren't going to deal as much return damage if you isolate someone like this Erlang Shen, or maybe if you can find Dardes in one of those very small windows where Aphrodite is actually susceptible to damage. And they continue putting pressure on him with no ult, no beads. Now's the time to do it. But unfortunately, it's just so difficult to get an Aphrodite isolated, alone, and in a position where you're able to pluck her or lock her down in any other way.
You saw the trouble just now as Renegades have now decided they're moving as a 3-man unit. Ven, Jake, and Lasbra are together roaming around the map looking for prey. But you saw Lasbra struggle in the middle lane when he was trying to catch up to Dardes. Dardes just turns around and drops the kiss for the stun. There's not much that can be done. Now the silence to interrupt the dash, and Jake is in trouble. Cheerio grabs the kill, and that is the 3v3 of SSG, showing what they can do, and now looking to maybe even invade this red buff. But great work from Lasbra, recognizing that that might be their focus. He burns it quickly, and SSG can only get the pick. But now Venenu with no mana. Dharmic Pillars maybe limiting the options there for Venenu, and Cheerio is able to get the kill.
I mean, that's just good play from top to bottom, right? If you've ever been on the receiving end of a Ganesh silence, then you know how awful it feels to be locked in place, especially as a Sobek, when you're just a little ability away from getting away from this team fight. I mean, Jake had the dash, was trying to go, and gets caught off there, and Rafford showcasing again why this god is so good. Specifically in the hands of SSG, not a lot of people are running Ganesh at this same level, and I think Rafford just understands it enough to be able to bring it in and fold it in. It fits their style of play. And then unfortunately for Venenu, I mean, you're a Chang'e in mid lane with no mana. There's not much you can do there. That's just easy pickings for anybody at this point. And so, again, good on SSG recognizing where they're going to find control. Still scrappy, 5 kills this time around in 9 minutes, as opposed to last game, which was 9 kills in 9 minutes that they were keeping pace with. But it's still leading to a small lead, 500 gold, but still in favor of SSG, showcasing that they know what they're doing and that they're keeping the pace in their favor.
And a comfortable, cozy game here for SSG so far. Just that one death for Cheerio when Renegades is 3v3. Lasbroven and Jake found him at his Harpies right here near where we are right now. So for Cheerio, the only one that's fallen so far for SSG, but everybody else feeling good, man. 1-0-3 for Dardez, 0-0-3 for Raffer with that perfect line. It's all been about the mid 3v3 for both these teams so far. Look at the side lanes. Relatively even, slight leads for actually both the Renegades' side lanes, which is not bad, but neither one of them have been involved so far. This is where SSG, I think, can thrive a lot of the time, when Dardez, Cheerio, and Raffer can work together to just be better than the enemy 3v3. They've done it so much up until now. I think Nika's kind of risen with this Amaterasu pick, but this is their bread and butter.
And look, if you're telling me who to bet on, like the 3v3 that's been winning for SSG only gets better when Nika joins the fight. There's not much downside.
Right. Not at all. Good work from Barra. Couldn't make it out of there. Has to use the beads, but that was a minefield that he just escaped. Now Jake is inside the ultimate there, looking to lock down one more target. That target is Dardez, and he has no way to get out. Venenu gets the damage. Lasbro using 2 escapes makes it out. Deathbane and Ambush. He shall escape, but the same cannot be said for Jake, who falls. It's mid lane for support, but Cheerio is able to get one more kill. Great work from Ben, though, with that first ability to at least cut down Cheerio and trade. So jungle mid for the duo lane of Renegades.
Yeah, you get rid of 2/3 of the 3v3, and you get rid of the duo lane on the other side. I think better overall for the Renegades, maybe net neutral, just because Cheerio ends up getting more kills, and that's never going to be positive for anybody on the opposing side. But Renegades definitely being able to not only pull away a lot of that gold lead, which, again, was minimal already, but showcasing that they still have fangs to bite into SSG with. It's not just going to be laying over 4-1 this entire time in terms of kills. It's 6-3. They can keep pace a little bit in these team fights. They need more engagements like that, though, where maybe SSG overcommit at the beginning and you isolate Dardez immediately, because if Dardez lives even slightly longer through all of that, then you are not facing the same, I think, kills that come up in your favor. There's a lot more healing all of a sudden. He still maybe was able to apply his ult, things like that could come into favor. And soon enough, he's going to be level 12. I anticipate something like an Aegis coming online for him, so it'll be even more difficult to lock down then. And so there's small opportunities to take down someone like Dardez are going to be key and crucial for Renegades.
And I think you saw in that fight how critical Dharmic Pillars is for Spacestation 2, because Raffer used it to try and get the kill into Barra, who responded with the Fields of Love beads to get him back out of there, instead of having it to help peel, as Lasbra does get rooted, but has the taunt in response. Dardez uses Fields of Love, and Venenu just gets deleted gore. He never stood a chance, it would seem. Jake uses the ultimate, the Lurking in the Waters, in order to escape, but Cheerio is still on the hunt. The silence is there, so he cannot escape. They block the charge Prey, and that's a second kill. Vin and Jake both going down.
I mean, that's, again, well-timed silence, a great pin, then a perfect body block to make sure that Jake still can't dash away. If you're going to lose any fights and have it go 2 for 2 like the one we saw prior to that, then that's how you have to respond afterward, right? You have to go in, absolutely erase Venenu from the game, make you forget that Shanga even exists for a little bit, then lock down Jake. And it's left him open here. I mean, no one on Renegades is anywhere nearby this Fury. It's free.
Yeah, this belongs to SSG, and now things are getting a bit out of control, huh? Now to 3,000 gold lead. Just about, so maybe a little bit less. Still not backbreaking for Renegades, though. This is pre-Bane putting Batman over the knee. They still got chances here, but it's not exactly great for them. They're going to need to fight into a difficult composition. Cheerio, 2 levels ahead of Lasbra. Raffer, 2 levels ahead of Jake, and now has that second relic. It is the horrific emblem that he's looked for, and his 4 blinks on the other side. No sprint. Gonna get a lot harder before it gets easier, but maybe Lasbra can brute force something here. He leaps in, still has the Deathbane to reposition, but no ambush. Uses that last breath and is just barely able to get out of those Dharmic pillars without falling, but Renegades are re-engaging, and Nika is able to clean up Lasper in the back. Cheerio gets Barracuda. This felt like maybe Renegades trying to force a fight into a space station had the answer. Venenu falls as well. Jake barely escaping to the left, but he just barely gets out, and that leaves Variety all alone, high and dry, 4 for 0, as the Renegades tremendously overstep.
And the mental damage afterward, right? Not only are you the ones looking for the fight, you get 4-man wiped, and then they throw some taunts in there just to let you know that it wasn't even close. I mean, look at the health bars there. Granted, some of those have been topped off now by an Aphrodite, but it's left to them 12 to 3 in terms of kills, 4,000 gold in favor. I'm going to go ahead and say 14.5 minutes into the game starting a Fire Giant. The earliest Fire Giant I think we can say we've seen this year. Maybe not quite. I think we've had a 12-minute one, maybe an 11-minute one that came through that was just ridiculous. I'm forgetting one. There was an E-United 10-minute Fire Giant in that one, 17-minute game way back when in Phase 1. So there's been some ridiculous plays. But still, SSG making sure that things are completely accelerated in their favor with these objectives going their way. 6, 2, and 6 there if you look at Cheerio. But my eyes are on 0011. Out of 12 kills, Raffer's assisted 11 of them. This Ganesh is piloting things. Maybe it deserved to be banned.
Well, look at the mid 3v3, right? Cheerio is a part of all 12. Dardes, 3, 1, and 8 has been a part of 11. And then as you already highlighted, Raffer's insane line of 00 and 11 is a part of 11 of them, right? It's been all this mid 3v3 just at every turn getting the better of Lasbra, Van, and AwesomeJake. They've not been able to compete throughout it. And I think that it comes down a lot to, remember that first blood, right, where Cheerio gets to Dardes before they're level 5, or not to Dardes, excuse me, to Venenu before they're level 5, and is able to find that kill. Space Station's 3v3 has been ahead basically since level 4.
And again, it was all like a window of opportunity because they were only level 4, because that ult wasn't there for Vin or Lasbra. They didn't have any retaliation. Now you replay that in that exact moment at this level, and they wouldn't be too stressed out about it. You'd require a lot more, I think, from SSG to lock it down. But now with Fire Giant as well as this pathing, I mean, this is no care to the world. They want to fight.
They're just running in, and Lasbra, unfortunately, is the sacrificial lamb, but he might not be the only one that falls, as Cheerio is quite low. Barracuda able to find that kill, and maybe SSG have overstepped because Variety gets the executor. Renegades are finding a couple of kills for themselves, but Nika hunts down Barracuda for a double. Boot puts down Variety, and Jake left watching his teammates in dismay. It ends up being a 4 for 2 in favor of SSG, and they're probably definitely going to get this left side Phoenix. They still got Vote alive to help them burn right on through it.
I would love to be able to hear SSG's comms right there, because Vote did not even blink at that team fight. He was like, yeah, I'm getting the tier 2. I'm going to get this tier 2. Like, I'm not joining you guys. I'm not going to come over and fight. I am going to kill this tier 2. And then we'll see what happens, because after everyone, well, I say everyone, after 2 members of his team die, he rotates in to help kill off Variety and get more pressure onto the Renegades there. And hey, either way, he's 3-0-2. I think he's more than happy to help be a part of the fight at the very end. Plus, they get the Phoenix because he gets that tower. So take the delay all you want. I don't care if you're trading your lives for it. Cheerio and Raffer can die 10 times out of 10 for that one. I think it's a good trade for them. And they still have a minute and 15 to play around with this Fire Giant. There's still 2 tier 2 towers going down. Maybe they're looking for more fights, but there's plenty of objectives for them to shred as well.
There is. Look at Cheerio making this pathing towards Barracuda, who didn't know. Has to use the beads right away. Has dropped the Fields of Love as well. And is looking to see if maybe can win the fight, but the knock-up too strong. Has to dash away. And Lasbra comes in to provide some support. So Barracuda will survive his brush with death, but that costs him beads. That costs him Aegis. That costs him his ultimate. And Cheerio has taken all that away from him for free.
And Barra, notably right there, no lifesteal in his build. I was wondering where his health was. Normally, you see a hunter run into the jungle and start a camp. It's because they're going to top themselves off. Something like an Aussie passive, or at least Devos, is going to get you up there, but he has no lifesteal, so he's relying entirely on the dumplings.
Dardes has been jumped in the jungle. Good use of that Undying Love gets him out. And Cheerio is able to get rid of Venenu in the back. Dardes will eventually be sent to the afterlife, but I think he's done his job. Cheerio gets the double kill. Variety incredibly low, looking for a way to finally escape. He blinks back in to try and help, but Cheerio gets the triple kill, knock up into the quadra kill. Cheerio, Erlong Shen is showing up as the Renegades don't have an answer.
All right. So the discussion of next week's waiting room should literally just be Cherio versus Sam. Who's the best player? And here's my argument preemptively, especially if I'm on it, for why it's Cherio. Pentakill 1 week, quadra-kill the next week. Oh, by the way, another quadra-kill the next week. I mean, the man just comes through and gets it done, Finch.
Corey, is it just over now? I mean, Spacestation now are right on the Titan of Renegades, but anyway, without the ultimate. Lasper comes in as well, and Spacestation are low, so this will be close. Perhaps Renegades can find a way to stop them after all. Cherio ends up falling. It's just both at the left,
close.
And now at the very back. There's nothing Rapper can do alone. Renegades do enough to keep this game going, as Rapper now barely surviving. He'll eventually end up falling, but that Titan is low.
Yeah, I mean, that's about as close as it can get, right? I'm having flashbacks already. Granted, I think it happened a little bit later. That was what happened to Radiance yesterday. Hopefully SSG don't end up in the same position. But they do find themselves still ahead. Look, a Phoenix on left, a Phoenix on right, the tier 2 just now in mid. They're going to have a lot of control. And they're going to have a lot of gold to spend as well. I mean, their items are much further ahead right now than what the Renegades have been able to pick up. Kill-wise, I mean, I don't think I've seen a team more comfortable, but they have a good window right here. I mean, 10 seconds before anyone else is really back up for SSG. Renegades should get this Fire Giant. It should sway things in their favor, but eventually they still have 6 towers to go through. As much of a power play as this can be for them, there's a lot they have to do before this is equal in any way.
They still don't have it. Dardes is nearby. Lasper goes to deal with him. That should be enough as the Fire Giant ends up low. Renegades grab it, though. Variety ends up low. They have to use the Waxing Moon just to get him out of there. Variety used the Fatal Strike to evade, and Lasper used the Last Breath on defense. Remember, there's still Firemen who's pouring in the side lanes, too. So Renegades have to get their backs off, and I don't think SSG are going to give them a moment to breathe. They know this is their moment of maximum leverage, so they should get aggressive. Last underneath the mid, Phoenix just barely gets away from Cheerio's grasp. Meanwhile, in right, SSG continue to barrel in. Left side, Phoenix going to fall the second it responds to Cheerio's anger. Jake won't even make it back to the fountain. He waves sadly from the wings as his team has to defend 5v4, and the Titan already under siege. They do drop the Fields of Love on it, but SSG go right for the big objective, and that's enough for the win. 21 minutes, 20 seconds, and SSG find the 2-0.
All right, game 1, very hopeful for Renegades. Game 2, that was SSG putting on a clinic. I mean, how many times do you see a team pick up a Fire Giant and then run back to their Titan room? Not back to the base and buy items. They had to run away, all the way back to try and stay alive and salvage the game. I think it just showcases how far ahead SSG really were there. All 6 towers still standing. They didn't even let Renegades take one of those objectives for them.
Wow.
Again, clinic is the only term I can think for. That is about as close to a clean Smite game as you can get.
Yeah, very, very well done there by SSG. A bit of a bounce-back game after game 1 kind of went the distance. So SSG find the 2-0. Renegades are left reeling, and we'll break this down a bit more after this quick break.
was surprised that Game 1 took 38 minutes. Game 2 is why, because SSG are the type of team that will beat you in 21 minutes if you let them, and unfortunately for the Renegades, they let SSG beat them in 21 and a half minutes here in Game 2. SSG win the set 2-0. Finally, I get a prediction right here this week. It seems like we've had a lot of 2-0s, but upsets are kind of in the 2-0 category. It's been a lot of fun to watch these teams recently, and a lot of fun to watch SSG in this one if you're a fan of Spacestation.
Yeah, if you like watching Cherio get triples and quadras and pentas, then yeah, today was fun for you for sure. He continues to just run it down with this Erlong pick and look fantastic on it. 12-4 for him in this game. But it wasn't just Cherry. I mean, it was the whole team. Vote had another good game. Raffer, I thought, was absolutely incredible on the Ganesh. 22 assists for him in a really impressive performance. I mean, he put out more damage than Vote or Barracuda, and he doubled Lasbra's damage in this game. Like I said, I just think that Renegades, you already, I've harped on it all day. Their picks and bans phase is going to be harder based on the way that their team likes to play. But you got to take calculated risks, I suppose. They take a risk on how this is going to work, how their picks and bans are going to work up against a team like SSG. They're going to try and leave open the Afro, pick some counter picks for it, match the sustain. Risk did not pay off today, Dave. No. It was pretty clean for SSG.
Yeah, same conversation as before. You're always fighting an uphill battle, pick banning against Space Station, but you don't want to make it any harder on yourself than you might have to. One of the picks we talked about a good bit, and we've already mentioned here, Cherio on this Erlong Shen. Gormizer mentioned it, but it's always worth reiterating. A pentakill 2 times ago that we saw this. Not 2 pentakills, but 2 previous games for Cherio. A quadra kill in the last game that Cherio played the Erlong Shen, and also a quadra kill in this game when Cherio played Erlong Shen. Throw it to the pile, I suppose, Aggro, on picks that you maybe can't let SSG play.
It's tough to beat this team, man. It's what the best teams do to you. It's that, you've got teams and players that are all very, very talented mechanically and have the opportunity to make plays when given that opportunity, but the ones that make you feel like you can't win when you give them 3 or 4 different gods in every single role just make it that much harder. And I think that's the big thing about SSG right now is that they are character specialists that can play the meta, that can set the meta, and then can beat you with anything you end up giving them. I think that's why they're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the entire SPL right now.
Well, that's a question we're going to return to after we sit down with Raffer for a quick post-win interview. Take a listen.
Thanks, Dave. I absolutely do have Raffer here. I'm sure bored with these post-game interviews at this point. The first thing I want to ask you here, man, is that it feels like you guys are always in a position where you're getting a pick or 2 somewhere that just runs the game. Is there ever a time when you guys feel like you're under pressure in the pick ban phase, or is it just easy for you guys?
Nah, not picks and bans are just fairly easy. I won't lie, we tend to do picks and bans like 10 minutes before the games at this point. It's relatively easy, and teams are just they're really easy to read. Like, we knew exactly how the picks and bans were gonna go. There's obviously some teams you do struggle with a lot more, like Ghost will be one to a degree, but we know how they play. We'll have to see what happens in game.
I was thinking that might be your guys' biggest strength, right? You're so strong in picks and bans, but I also think you guys have the best 3v3 in the league, right? Your mid-jungle support is such a strong core of your team. What do you think is the greatest strength of this SSG roster? Because for me, it's hard to pick between all the things you guys do well.
If I'm going to be honest, it's probably... I see a lot in common with the team that won Worlds twice, I think it was the support player.
I think a couple of commonalities.
To answer it seriously, it's Cherry's really good. He makes my role just 10 times easier. Dardez, obviously, he knows my role too. He just makes it so much easier for me to play, and I feel like we can just dictate the 3v3 that way, and it's really fun to play with these guys.
It's fun to watch as well, man. You guys are absolutely nuts in all these games that you play. Talk to me real quick about Game 1, because Game 2 was easy. You guys won that one quick. Game 1 got a little bit out of hand. Things go to about 37 minutes. What happened in that one that gave you all a little bit more trouble?
I honestly can't even remember. The game's just... when a game goes that long, I tend to just forget what happened in it. It must be the age kicking in. From what I do remember, it was just awkward firefights, people trolling. Dardes, I think it was. Was it Dardes who trolled? There's so many people make dumb mistakes in those long games. It is what it is. I prefer to lose in 20 minutes if I'm going to be completely honest with you, than winning 40 or 50 minutes.
I feel like nothing gets in the way of you guys more than yourselves at times occasionally. You're one of the best that we've got, if not just the best, man. Thanks for taking some time to talk with me. We'll get it back to the desk and close this day out.
No problem. Thank you.
Finch asks Raffer, well, what's working so well for this team? And my mindset is, all right, he really wants to say himself, but he's not going to. And then he's thinking really long and hard about it. Wow, he's going to formulate a really good answer, and then he says himself anyway, before giving a serious shout-out there to Cherio, who has been playing absolutely lights out. So, Aggro, just prior to that interview, we kind of posed a question, the best, if not the best. Does the performance of Ghost today do enough for you that gives SSG the nudge for playing like the best team in the league at the moment?
Yes. Yeah, they have to be, right? I mean, Ghost lost today. Spacestation crushed a Renegades team that can give any team in the entire league trouble. I think they have to be right now. Now, does that mean that I think SSG has the best chance to win Worlds? Not necessarily, though they very likely could. The SPL changes so much week to week, day to day. It feels so hard to really nail it down, but as of 7:29 p.m. Eastern Time on October 17th, Spacestation Gaming is the best team in the league.
I don't think many people outside of maybe Finch. I think Finch was on the Ghost side of that argument. I don't even know if he could push back against that statement nowadays. Radiance versus Obey. That'll kick us off tomorrow to round out this weekend in the SPL. Sanguine versus E United after that. Aggro, you look at those two matchups. Either one of them jump out at you. Which one are you more excited to watch?
I'm just excited for another great day of the SPL, Dave. I don't think one does jump out because every set is so competitive now. You know, I'm excited to see if United's able to put it back together. They came out so hot with their roster change. They've cooled off a little bit. I'm excited to watch their game tomorrow for sure.
All these teams that are playing tomorrow in need of sort of a push forward. Radiance, of course, got the win today. Obey Alliance, definitely. Sanguine, E United as well. That's going to be a fun one to watch. But that is it for today in the SPL. Make sure to tune in for the SCC tomorrow. That'll be live at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the SPL will start up with Radiance versus Obey at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So, you know, everyone, you know, all the talk, politics, all that sort of stuff has been the topic of conversation here, at least over in North America and in the U.S. November 3rd, that's the big election day. If you are able to do so, make sure to get out and go vote. We'll see you tomorrow. Peach it. Everybody, we're getting to the end of 2020, thank God, and that means we are almost at election time. Now more than ever, it's important for everyone to get out, exercise their right to vote, make an impact on your local community and at the countrywide scale. So make sure November 3rd or earlier, if able, you get out and vote.
Go vote.
Go vote.
Canadian, by the way, but understanding that elections are important and obviously you still need to vote.
We literally just say the word vote.
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 Go vote.
Yeah, I'm gonna say vote also.
Go vote.
What are you still doing here? Go vote.
Hey guys, make sure you go out and vote.
Hey guys, remember to go vote.
And remember to vote.
Vote.
Go vote or I'll kick your ass.
Hey guys, remember to go vote.
Well, I know at times your vote can seem elusive, but it is indeed your right to vote. Make sure that you're paying attention. Get out there and vote.
What the f does everyone want with me, man? Jesus Christ.